What's good, everybody? Welcome into another and the final of our 2024 preseason preview episodes. Here with the crew Scott, Joe, Cam, Isaac, and Tyson going 6 wide with this one as well. Fitting enough because we are covering 6A and Division II-AAA. The big boys are getting it tonight. Guys, this is kind of the last of these preview episodes. We're right there the season, and we talk about a lot of schools and these two classes. I think this may be the most interesting of the 3 episodes we're going to do because several different storylines across several different regions. So this ought to be good, guys. So get your opening thoughts first. Scott, I'll start with you.
Well, okay, put me on the spot. No, you're right. I think that it's we had some differences last year. Some teams that may have been so-called teams of destiny, teams that you know we had some results that were shocking, especially in 6A at the Blue Cross level. Shocking to some. So a lot of great talent left the mid-state. Some of those teams are going to have to reload. Some of them already have. Some of them are going to rebuild. I think it's going to be a really interesting year in the big regions.
Joe?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to not have a gold ball coming back in this large class in particular, for the simple fact of Oakland. It's been so dominant in 6A, and for the last couple of years, they finally saw that streak come to an end. And D2 AAA is just kind of the same old as it's been the last couple of years with Chattanooga private schools dominating. Kind of some shocking records for our schools in that category. I guess we'll get into that here in a bit. But Oakland returns a lot. They're going to be really motivated after last year, but I mean, we'll get into it here in a little bit. I don't think they're going to be alone here. We got a lot of really good 6A teams around here. Oakland's still ahead of the table, but there are some teams that are right there on their heels.
All right, Cam, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this being maybe the most interesting, and I think part of that has to do with between 6A and D2 AAA. That takes up about half of our coverage area on the number of teams that we cover. So that's why this show gets its own show, and it's only 2 classifications. But Oakland. Oakland's Oakland. I think they got surprised last year in the Blue Cross Bowl, and every once in a while a program needs that. So I think that, especially with how good Kevin Creasy is, I think that group will come out hungry and ready to go in 2024.
Isaac?
Yeah, like we're saying, biggest amount of schools as far as in our coverage area. I mean, a lot of the focus is probably going to be on Oakland, rightfully so. I mean, they're probably going to be the favorite again this year, or one of the favorites for 6A. But, I mean, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of other really good storylines for us to follow, especially with some of these 6A schools and some regions. I mean, some of these regions, especially one in particular, I think could be an entire episode on itself. And it's going to be interesting when we get to talking to it. But, yeah, I think there's going to be some teams that are better this year, especially at the 6A level. I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about Oakland, but I think there's a lot of storylines to follow in 6A for some schools that are going to be having a better year than last year.
And Tyson, you have the freshest perspective on this particular set of schools because you had to play in them last year.
Yeah.
So give us your thoughts here.
No, definitely probably one of the best years to have your senior season in 6A. Just so much good competition. Just it was just a lot of fun. Like you had I think 3 Memphis teams competing to the last day to win that region. And that's not our coverage, but it was still a big player. Obviously Houston came out, just breezed through everyone, including us and Oakland. And I think that just really lit a fire under Oakland. And I think they're this is basically a revenge tour. Even though they went all the way, I think they want revenge on Oakland. And if you happen to be in their way, good luck. And what Isaac was saying, great storylines everywhere. I think almost every team in the Williamson County region, I don't know what number it is, but the Brentwood, Ravenwood, Summit, Overton, all them, I think every single team in that region has a very interesting storyline to follow. and it's going to be really exciting to see how that goes.
So we'll start. Let's kind of start there because I mean, we look back at what 2023 produced from a storyline perspective. I mean, yeah, in Region 6, there's a lot of those. Obviously, Oakland's trip to the Blue Cross Bowl and them subsequently finishing runner-up in a downpour to close the year out in the Blue Cross Bowl. And then Region 4, which could be summed up best as a dartboard region, just throw it and see what sticks. To Antioch and Smyrna and Cambridge in the Region 5. So we saw a lot last year from a lot of different teams, a lot of different story angles. What stood out to you the most from 2023? And we'll start in 6A, and then we'll go to Division II-AAA in just a second.
I would say the reemergence of the Memphis schools was a big one. You know, they had pretty much shut down from COVID, and it took them a couple of years to get back into it, get the ship righted, get back into the norm of having their seasons canceled, and they have come back with a vengeance, as we saw last year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Houston, I think, was one of those ones that wasn't really affected by all that, though, because I know in basketball they still went on to win state. Yeah, I mean, that just you look back at Oakland last year, it was kind of a weird year. We saw them finally lose a region game for the first time under Kevin Creasy, and then they come back and they just whoop on Riverdale in the playoffs. And then they lose in state to Houston. So that was weird. And then Clarksville. I mean, Clarksville is kind of a storyline on its own when you really look at it. Clarksville really – I thought we knew they'd be good last year, but to go undefeated in the regular season, be a play away from beating Collierville, that was shocking. So, I mean, there was no shortage of it last year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely – you know, as Joe mentioned, with Riverdale being able to knock off Oakland in the regular season last year, that was kind of a telltale sign that maybe Oakland, which we knew last year was the year to get them if you were going to get them, right? But that could have been a telltale sign. And then you look at the emergence of Andre Adams at Antioch, right? Just a great freshman year from him, and Antioch kind of come out of nowhere, and they've set themselves up to be in a pretty good spot in that region again here in 2024. So that's a good starting point for that region. And then, as Tyson said, every team in that Williamson County region has a different storyline. I think maybe the most enticing to me to start is Franklin. You know, it's just because Franklin was in so many close games over the last 2 or 3 years. And one of the things that Coach Atkins has been preaching early this offseason is we're going to do the little things right first. And if they do the little things right in a lot of those games, they will wind up winning those games.
Yeah, like Scott was saying with the reemergence of Memphis, what really surprised me, I don't know if it's going to continue, but just for me, growing up in the time that I was playing football, last year was noticing, I don't want to, maybe not the downfall, but like just the inability that the Knoxville 6A schools had to really get past anybody that's not in Knoxville. I mean, Maryville kind of fallen off a little bit. They didn't get very far in the playoffs, not like you usually would expect from them. Bearden losing to Bradley Central, kind of having a coming out season last year, but then Bradley Central does not have a really competitive game when they get to the quarterfinals, semifinals against Oakland. So I mean, if those teams in Knoxville don't really kind of step up their game, it's going to leave some spots open for teams like Riverdale, teams in the Wilson County region, Cookeville, Gallatin, maybe leave some spots open for them to make some noise in the playoffs.
Tyson, it's yours.
Yeah. The Wilco region, just like last year, just was kind of the place to be. Like, if you made the playoffs, you basically just had like a free first round bye. It felt like just like playing against the Metro teams. Metro was pretty weak last year. Like Kenridge made the playoffs at 2-8. Like have a story about that I don't know if I have time to share, but like, and true, like Cambridge did give us some trouble in the first half, but like I feel like the biggest competition for us, aside from Houston, was like our own region, and I feel like that's like one of the best things about the Wilco region is like just everyone is like, even if it's Franklin going 0-10, they're like the best 0-10 team in the nation. Just everything's so established and everything's competitive, and it's just anything can happen.
Yep.
It's like the SEC in late October, where you got South Carolina knocking off Tennessee.
Oof, that's a rough spot for Cam over there.
Cam just
It was a great time at church camp here in South Carolina, beat Tennessee. Seeing all my friends, just so sad.
Now moving on. Let's start with 6A. Well, we'll start in Region 3 with Oakland and the Rutherford County teams. And we talked about the upset that Riverdale knocked them off and won the region title last year. Cam, you and I were there for that first game and how that went down, and one of the crazier finishes we've seen in a while. And Oakland comes back in the rematch and just takes them to the woodshed and beyond. Just served up a healthy dose of revenge in the playoffs to knock them out. Is the gap still that wide this year between Oakland and the rest of this region, or does it get a little closer this year?
I think the gap is wider this year than it was last year. I think last year we knew Riverdale was going to be pretty competitive. Didn't think they would beat Oakland, of course, but that's just a testament to how good that team was with Braden Graham and Brock Montgomery, and it's. I think the gap is wider. I'd look for Blackman to be improved over what they were last year, and then Riverdale, they still have DJ Taylor, the MTSU commit, really good commit there by Coach Mason at the MTSU. As he had offers to go to bigger schools. And then they got Cameron Booker coming in from DCA that is going to help them out in the wide receiver position, and got a really young quarterback that's really talented. It's just a matter of how soon he can develop. In 6A football, it's a different animal. So it's going to be a season for the Warriors that can be very surprisingly good, but it can also have its lumps. So it'll be interesting to see how that season turns out for Riverdale.
Yeah, I think with Oakland, I agree with you, Cam. I think that that the gap is a little wider this year than it was last year, and even more so now. They've gained another speed back in TT Hill, who's come over from Brentwood Academy. Now they have four running backs if you include Craig Tutt. And my understanding is that they've got packages to get all those guys on the field at one time. That's going to be so. This team will go as far as Kyler Creasy can take them. If they can develop a passing game to keep teams off of Morris and Haynesworth and TT, then they could just outscore people. But Oakland's defense is always going to be one of the tougher ones, especially in that region. So I think it's Riverdale for all the reasons that Cam mentioned, should be a solid number 2 in that region. The interesting thing is going to be the battle between the three, Single, Rockvale, and Blackman, of who's going to be odd man out.
See, I don't know if Oakland throws the ball more than 40 times this season. They
may not have to.
They're not going to need to. I mean, TT coming back is huge. When you look at it, he was a big part of that state championship team 2 years ago before transferring to Brentwood Academy. It was him and Khalil James they were the two guys. TT comes back. He's taking pressure off DeJuan. Avery can maybe fit more of a blocking role now in that fullback, and then Craig Tutt maybe come in the backfield as well. So that's huge. It's a huge gap, I think, this year compared to last year. Riverdale is still number 2 in that region. I think Blackman's a solid number 3. I think Blackman is really good. They'll be young this year, but they should fill that number 3 spot. 4 is where it gets interesting. You got Rockville. You just don't know enough about Rockville. Is Siegel finally going to take that next step and surpass Rockville? It's going to be an interesting region, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Outside of the top 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that return wide receiver Jaden guy that Blackman has. I think he's special.
Yeah, talking about Oakland, just how far the gap is between them and some other teams in this region. I think they're going to breeze through their schedule. I mean, the only tough games they have at the beginning is going to be a non-region game where they go to Texas playing in a high school. I mean, that's interesting, but I mean, it doesn't really matter for anything that comes with playoffs. I think the games that are going to matter for them are going to be towards the end of the season. Riverdale, last game of the year, and then possibly it'd be very interesting, like a possible state championship matchup with Ravenwood close to the end of the season. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but yeah, I mean, like you're saying, towards the bottom, or not the bottom of the playoff spots, it'll be interesting to see what goes on. I have high hopes for Rockville. I saw them in a scrimmage against Wilson Central. Granted, Wilson Central was probably not on their level, but they were looking really good. The players that they got, Jalen Morgan, of course, the 4-star athlete, cornerback coming back. Cavante Porter, another defensive back, Florida offer, Bo Bryan, 6'5", O-line, MTSU commit. They got new turf, a USA flag turf. That was interesting to look at. But I think the bottom of that region is going to be interesting to look at, see the kind of horse race we got for see who gets to that last spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the best illustration of how this region is going to go is the Oakland Siegel game from last year. It was like 14-7 at halftime. I remember someone running in from the locker room at halftime of one of our games, and it's like Oakland's only up by 7 to Siegel. And then I remember looking after the game, and it's 49-7.
Yeah.
And so I think last year, they're in the lead, but they had Riverdale right on their tail, who ended up getting the best of them in the season finale. And then they're just gonna they realize wait, we're only up 7, we should be killing these guys, and they just flip that switch and just get it going. But I think if Riverdale plays Riverdale football, then they're gonna be the clear number 2. Maybe catch Oakland on an off night again, win the region again. Who knows? Anything can happen. Blackman, I think, is pretty comfortable in the 3 spot unless something goes wrong. And then, it's Rockville versus Siegel about basically who's going to be worse. And I know Rockville had a good scrimmage against Wilson, like Isaac was saying, but you also got to think about the scrimmage with Ravenwood. And if they're going to be playing teams half as good as Ravenwood all year, or half as good as Ravenwood's looking, then it doesn't look great for the Rockets.
Yeah, you don't want to base too much on scrimmages, but 45-7 and a half that's rough.
Yeah.
I'm actually a believer in that Siegel may be that 4th team. Their offensive line is still in place there, and they're earth movers. They lost Santel, but they've got another quarterback in Kristen Thornton, and they've got, like I said, their line is still in place. That team should be able to move the ball.
Let's turn our attention to Region 4 because these will cross over in the postseason. And I've said it already. This is the dartboard region. Throw a dart and see where it lands, because there, in theory, could be several potential region champions out of this group. I think that they're all pretty tightly wound together in between Cookville, Gallatin, Green Hill, Lebanon, Mount Juliet. And one really good team is probably is going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I know we've already as a group collectively we picked Gallatin, but I mean you could essentially be on the fence week 1 after seeing different teams play here.
Chris, I think you hit the nail on the head. One of these teams is going to be really good. Is going to miss the playoffs, probably, and one of the teams in the other region that may or may not be quite as deserving is going to make it in. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Yeah, in this region, to me, it starts and ends with Mount Juliet. That team's absolutely fired up, loaded. I think they are on a mission, and the improvements that Tyler Travers has made, just from what I've seen in preseason, is he looks like a totally different quarterback to me. He's putting the ball in spots where where he wasn't hitting those spots last year. They've got a good wide receiver in Jonas Gizaw. There's their offensive line, their secondary strong, and they have again a tremendous defense. Atticus Fiorita and Brooklyn Nugent, and I'm sure I'm butchering that, but I think that they're solid across the board.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think Mount Juliet's probably the favorite to win in that region. However, they did lose Harrison Edwards to Lebanon, which Isaac and I were talking about this the other night. Man, Lebanon is a sneaky pick, guys.
Yeah.
This is a team that they didn't make the playoffs last year, right? They were that team that was left out. You add in Harrison Edwards, who you could argue is the best running back in that region, him and John Michael Crudup. I mean, that was a deadly backfield. And Lebanon will really see week one with Lebanon against Antioch. But there are things in Mount Juliet that I'm interested to see how they handle. One, they ended last year on a really rough note. I know everybody talks about the Green Hill loss. The Franklin loss is the one that worries me. That one should have never happened. Don't get me wrong, Franklin's not a bad team. We all said a win was going to happen, but that's not a loss that anybody saw coming. And then Green Hill happened. They was 35-3, and they have that plastered everywhere. I personally hope they don't get too caught up in that game. Focus on these other games. Don't get caught up elsewhere. The best quarterback in that region, as much as I like Tyler Travers, and he has gotten better, Jackson Stroop over at Gallatin, best arm talent in the entire region. When you look at quarterback play, this might be the best region because you have Cannon Burrows over at Green Hill. You have Tyler Travers. You've got Jackson Stroop. And he's a little different, but the Cookeville quarterback, he's back, and he's more of a runner. He's really good too. So this region, just toss a dart at a dartboard with one of the teams, and that's how you pick who wins because that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I'm really high on Lebanon this year. They were a really young team last year. They get that transfer with Harrison Edwards. Had an amazing game against Mount Juliet. I mean, I know you guys were there. I'd say one of the games of the year last year. Played really well against Green Hill last year. Won against them. They missed the playoffs. They were a really young team last year. I think last year was kind of a little bit of a rebuild for them. This year, I'm expecting some really, really good things for them. Mount Juliet, I've started to think about comparing them kind of like a Page-like team. They have a really, really, really good defense, and we'll see. I mean, their offense, it'll be good, but I think they're going to go as far as their defense is going to take them. Gallatin, a little bit of the opposite. I think they're a really offensive-heavy team, like you said, with Jackson Stroop, 2,000 passing yards last year. That's insane for a quarterback. Green Hill, like you said, I think they're probably going to go as far as Aaron Mattingly takes them. Aaron Mattingly, Cannon Burrows. As far as their offense, their defense is looking good. They were struggling a little bit against Spring Hill in a scrimmage, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think a really good team is going to miss out of here. And then we got Wilson Central kind of rebuilding. We'll see how they go. I think they're going to have a little bit of struggles this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of hit all the nails right on the head, right? I think Mount Juliet is probably the most overall put together team for sure. The reason why I leaned Gallatin when we were doing our discussions on who would win this region is because Gallatin averaged almost 30 points per game last year. And you know, anytime a team can put up that amount of points and at the high school level, you're going to be in every game on every Friday night. It's a matter of how well Gallatin's defense can develop and how good those trio running backs that they have that are underclassmen can come along early in the season to take a little pressure off Jackson.
Yeah, like at the beginning I was like, okay, like Gallatin seems like a very solid team. Like obviously anyone could win the region, but they seemed like a little under the radar, and just like the more I've heard y'all talk about it, I think I'm kind of jumping on that bandwagon. Like I think Gallatin could make some waves. If not Mount Juliet, I think it could be Gallatin. But yeah, Mount Juliet.
That's how we did it there.
They're the Greenway.
Yeah.
Oh,
Play on words there.
He didn't even realize it.
I didn't even realize it. But like Mount Juliet, like yeah, very like last year, very good team. Had two very like bad losses, definitely to them. Like I wasn't thinking about Mount Juliet too much as a player, but like looking back, like those are like two not great losses to end a 22 game win streak, which I'm disappointed in them for that. And also like getting killed by your rival when you're supposed to beat them. Like there's no worse feeling than that. But I know they're returning guys. They got a good quarterback. Have to give some love to special teams, Echeverria. I still think Luke Armistead could have challenged him for at least mid-state kicker of the year, but he's very good. And I was watching some of his film earlier. Hopefully he's still there, but he had a good long snapper giving him some good balls on field goal. So
I think he is.
Gotta give a shout out to that. Show some love.
Yeah, he
Live
had
up to my subtitle.
I think he had a 45-yarder at that scrimmage, something like that.
He hit a long one the other night. Just made it look. He could have hit it from 50 plus. Like kid's got a boot. I will say this in this class, or in these two classes in particular, we got some really good kickers.
Mm.
Like just because I watch like Tyson, special teams connoisseur. I watch the punters and kickers. We got some really good ones around here, and we'll get to one in D2 AAA here in a bit, who might have the biggest leg out of all of them. So,
I think that this region has, for the most part, probably the most contentious county rivalries in them. In that, at some point or another, everybody's going to get everybody's best game. I actually like Lebanon in that 2 spot. I think the interesting thing is going to be, did Cookeville surprise everybody, or is Cookeville, are they boss level in that region? If so, then like you said, a good team's going to lose out. But don't be surprised if Wilson Central doesn't knock off 1 or 2 of them here or there. I think they're still a year or 2 away from really being able to compete on a consistent basis. But they've got a lot of seniors returning, and Coach Kuhn up there, he's going to have those guys ready every week. I think that in that region, it's going to be a bloodbath at some point.
Talking contentious rivalries, Green Hill hosting Mount Juliet, Halloween night. Buckle your seatbelts. I mean, it's going to be insane.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Potentially
No better atmosphere.
Yeah.
I hope every student is in a costume there, or it's like a blackout whiteout game.
It very well could be that.
I think
One or the other. It has to be one or the other.
I think it is. So. We'll be there.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick break, and we will come back and we'll look on the western half of that 6A bracket right after this.
Doing something nice for someone, what a great idea, and Judge Sellers, owner of the Sellers Funeral Home family, is doing just that. The Sellers Funeral Home family, made up of 8 different locations, is proud to sponsor high school athletics throughout the Middle Tennessee area. giving back to the communities that have been so kind to us. That's the Sellers way. Thank you, Middle Tennessee.
And thank you, Sellers Funeral Homes, for sponsoring our our show here, and also going to announce that they are actually the Player of the Week sponsor.
Yep.
For our awards. So thanks to them for stepping up and supporting high school football in the Middle Tennessee area.
Yep.
I think Storm Sellers should be an honorable mention for our all name team.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Put an asterisk beside that one. All right, let's move over to the western half of that 6A bracket in Region 5 with the Metro teams. Antioch was the story there last year. Cane Ridge, a rough year and under Eddie Woods in his final year at the helm of the Ravens, and they slipped to a 2-win season. They finished fourth in the region, made the playoffs, but it wasn't fun for the Ravens. And Smyrna ultimately won the region, but didn't help them a whole lot in the postseason.
No. And Antioch could just get better this year, guys. I mean, our Sensei Broom's coming over from Overton, which, why is Overton not in this region? It makes no sense to me. That's a debate for another day. This lines up for them to really do work in this region. You got a Cane Ridge team that's rebuilding. You got a Smyrna team that, to be quite frank, we don't know a whole lot about. They lost quite a bit. Thomas Jones is no longer there. And by far the best quarterback in this region's at Antioch. Andre Adams is a name we're going to be talking about ad nauseum for the next 3 years. That kid's unbelievable. He's a great arm talent. It's kind of weird to me that more colleges haven't got after him yet. He's got the size. He does everything. So I think Antioch runs away with this region. Personally, I don't think they lose a game. If there's a team from this region that can make a deep run and maybe get some of those Wilco schools, it would be Antioch. I know they lost to Summit last year, but it's everything after Antioch's what we're going to be talking about a lot. And one team I think we need to maybe keep an eye on is Stewart's Creek. It feels like they are just kind of waiting, and this could be their year to really take second in the region.
I agree with that. I think that Stewart Creek, their defense is good, it's experienced. They held 3 opponents under 10 points and 5 to just 2 touchdowns. They got senior running back and Caleb Floyd that's is really good, and Keelan Harris, the linebacker there. He leads the D, and he's added on some weight. He's over 6 foot, 200 pounds. But the question is going to be, with them is their quarterback leadership. Antioch, Joe said just about everything you can say about them. But I think Smyrna, I think it's going to be these top 3 teams. I think Smyrna will stay in that. The battle will be between Stewart's Creek and Smyrna probably for that home playoff game in that region. Replacing Thomas Jones and the other skill position players that they lost is going to be tough. They got a sophomore quarterback there that they're developing, but their defense is still their defense. And Matt Williams is always his defenses are always tough. So I think that with those guys, I think that's where the separation is, and really the battle is going to be between Cane Ridge, Laverne, and McGavock, fighting over that last playoff spot in that region. And boy, Cane Ridge has a lot of questions. I'd almost look at Laverne in that spot, but it's just hard to count the Ravens out.
Yeah, talking about Antioch, the thing that really jumped out to me, I mean, obviously the players they got returning, but the first thing that jumped out to me about Antioch is their non-region schedule that they have this year is insanely tough. They're playing Lebanon, Nolensville, Oakland, Mount Juliet, and CPA. That's going to be really rough to play those games in between your region schedule. I mean, they do get Smyrna that's going to be kind of challenging them in that region, but I think they should be handling that region. But that out of region schedule, you got to really be making sure you're taking care of your body. I mean, not just injuries, possibilities, but just staying fresh for every game. You're playing region or playing a non-region schedule. Like I said, I think they're probably the second best team in that region. They lost a lot. They got some pretty good guys coming back. Aiden Augustine, he's a linebacker, senior, 3 interceptions last year, 7.6 tackles per game. Tyreek McCarver, wide receiver, who's also a senior, led the team with 5 touchdowns, 29.4 receiving yards per game. Jerry Martin also going to be holding down that defensive line. He's a junior. He's 6 foot 260. So we'll see how they do. But yeah, I think Antioch's probably going to be holding down the top of that region.
Yeah, I think Antioch's got to be the one. I'm with Joe on. I think this is the year Stewart's Creek can make a jump to 2. Smyrna's just a little bit too young for me. Seeing them on 7-on-7, a lot of just underclassmen mental mistakes, which is going to happen when you have young kids out on the field. So I expect Smyrna to be at the 3 spot, and then as Scott says, Cane Ridge probably gets a slight lean at 4, but it's very close between them, Laverne.
Yeah, it's really Antioch's region. Like Smyrna, like obviously very young team. So I think they could come back and, like once they like get established, get some more experience. Same thing with Stewart's Creek. I think Stewart's Creek's going in a good direction, but like honestly, last year was just such a disappointment for the region. Like Antioch losing the Summit, Smyrna. I mean, obviously Stewart's Creek and Smyrna pulled the short straw, having to face Ravenwood in the playoffs, because Ravenwood was a very dangerous team last year. And then Cane Ridge just kind of got lucky making it in. I remember I was on a visit at MTSU, and there was a Cane Ridge dad, and him and my mom were talking, and there was one point where my mom was like, "Oh, maybe we'll see y'all in the playoffs," and the dad just looked over and he was like, "No." And then sure enough, there we were, basically only up 14-7 over a 2-8 team at halftime, and then pulled out the old Merrill special.
It's going to be weird watching Cane Ridge this year without Eddie Woods. It's going to be strange. However, there's some familiarity there. They had a coach that was already on staff get promoted to that head coaching spot, so the kids aren't learning from somebody new. But I think they'll be better this year. They can't get much worse than they were last year. Cane Ridge is just one of those teams that doesn't go through these long spells where they're bad. So I could see them contending for a top 3 spot. Yeah, it's Antioch's world, and we're just living in it, which is, after a couple of years ago, who would have thought we'd be saying that?
Yeah, one of those true out of nowhere stories almost with Antioch and their rise to where they are right now. It's been really good. The last couple of years under Devin Arnold, now Arsente Broom takes over, and talking with him, he doesn't want to change much. He's got a good core there that is going in the right direction. He just wants to kind of help steer the ship.
It's very strange because the last time Antioch was on this level, very similar situation. They had a unbelievable talent that wound up playing in the SEC, and LaMarcus Coker. So it's kind of strange how it's a never-ending cycle. But these teams always find a way back, right?
Yep. All right, so let's turn our attention over to Region 6. And Tyson, you're smiling because now with defending region champ Brentwood and the remainder of that crew with Ravenwood, Franklin, Indy, Overton, and Summit in that region, the storylines we talk about that bound over there. Brentwood graduated quite a bit, so it's going to be a little different year for them.
They lost their long snapper, man. They ain't going to go anywhere.
Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, like, yes, lost a great long snapper. They're getting a real good one. Shout out Liam Englehart. We're recording this Sunday night. It's his birthday.
There you go.
I've been working with that kid since 8th grade. love him with my whole heart. He's going to be better than me because he's going to all these Coles camps that I don't want to spend the money on. He's this kid is like Power 5 potential. So,
There you go.
and also shout out to Keenan Fisher, all the special teams guys over there, all the guys I've been working with. You know,
So-
I can't wait to see what they all do.
So this is a region that, Brentwood, I won't say dominated, because you guys did get tested at times last year. You did go undefeated, which is what matters. Eventually losing to the eventual state champions and semi-state, nothing to hang your heads about there. Obviously, you don't want to say it, so we'll say it. Ravenwood's going to be unbelievably good this year.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
It was kind of wild because Scott and I went to that Brentwood Ravenwood regular season matchup, and you could see it with Ravenwood. You could see the talent is there for them to be good. They were just really young. Ravenwood, that's a state title contender, guys. If they can stay healthy and take care of business, Will Hester's got maybe the best problem any coach could have. He's got two legitimate starting quarterbacks in Maverick Chance and Femi Babaloa, who do completely different things. And then the rest of the team's just loaded. So you look at Ravenwood, think they're going to win the region. I still solidly think Brentwood's a solid number 2 in that region. I think they get Gavin back, Clayton's back. We'll see what they do at quarterback. The defense is always solid, it seems like. And then after that, it's kind of, who is third and fourth, because Indian Summit should be better. Overton, we'll see what happens with them. And, it's going to be a fun region, though, I think.
Yeah, I think Tyson got so excited we've lost him for a second there. So
I think he just hung up on Joe is what it was.
All that Ravenwood talk kind of got him fired up. So
his computer died.
We'll get him back.
He's long snapped his computer across the room.
We will get him back shortly while he.
I agree with everything that Joe just said. Ravenwood returning 28 seniors. That's unreal for a team that was as good as they were, and they're returning 28 seniors, and they're getting healthy with Maverick Chance coming back. Femi Babaloa, he had an incredible year. They've got tremendous wide receivers. I just you don't see a whole lot of holes in this team, but I don't think the gap is as far as it would be in Rutherford County. I think Brentwood is good. I think Brentwood, they had heavy graduation losses, and they're only returning one starter on defense. Okay, now I'm starting to read my own notes, and I'm going, maybe that gap is a little bit further than I thought. They picked up a 6'2", 235 tight end from Florida in Landon Okla. They've got offensive line strength. They got 3 returning starters on that offensive line. Gavin Nelson returns. Excuse me. I think that those are your 1-2s. Where it gets into the 3s, I mean, again, I think a good team is gonna lose out. I like Summit this year. I think their defense is going to be special. And I honestly think Franklin may end up in that number 3 spot. If they can gain confidence that they can do it. And I think last year, winning those two games after they had gone, where they had gone such a long stretch and been snake bitten. I mean, how many games would we check our phones? Hey, Franklin's leading. It's in the fourth quarter, and then we're like, oh man, they got beat, and not that we were necessarily pulling for them, but we were kind of. You don't like to see kids just consistently, get frustrated that way, because what kind of toll that takes on a psyche. Yeah. But I really think that they stand a good shot at the 4 spot this year. You know, you get a new offensive scheme at Summit. You know, they're bringing in Kerry Collins to call the offense there. So that's going to be really interesting. And Mason McElhenney will be behind center there. It's going to be an interesting year for the Spartans.
Yeah, if we're
go ahead, Isaac.
There you go.
I was just going to add on to Ravenwood, if you can add on to them, right? I'll talk about the one thing we haven't talked about, and one of the things I think that makes them, as Joe said, a legitimate state title contender. They are really good up front, and that starts with Kyle Larkin. He's getting several Division I offer looks, and that's what's going to carry them when it gets in the quarterfinals and the semifinals of the postseason. Is they're going to be in battles up front, and they're going to win a lot of them. So I think that's why they're the one in this region, and Brentwood is a number 2, but they're still a really good football team. So
yeah, I mean, I think we've pretty much all agreed on the top of this region is pretty much sorted out. Ravenwood, Brentwood, Ravenwood. I mean, I'm really excited for Franklin this year. Just how many close games they had last year. I think they have a really good shot at making the playoffs. You just need to win 2 games for them to make it in the playoffs. Which, I mean, if you win a 3rd game, you could possibly get in 3rd seed. So that'd be really great for Franklin. I think we're going to find out how good they are pretty early on. They play Page in the 3rd game of the year, so we'll find out kind of how they look against really good high-level opponents. And yeah, they get some of those tougher games or some of those more winnable games at home. They get Summit at home. They get Overton at home. So I think that'll be a good thing to watch for the Avalanche this year.
Yeah, and for Overton, yeah, Joe, you said it's a shame they're not in that other region because it feels like the Bobcats may be a bit overmatched in this grouping.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's just it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Just leave the region. The Williamson County teams in the regions are more than enough. Just have them and then move Overton over to the metro region. No, and then that's something we'll work on. I think, guys. We'll talk more off air, but like we can move things around and make it interesting looking.
Sounds like a project.
Yeah, sounds like a project. I think Summit is going to be a fun team to watch this year too. They have obviously Kerry Collins is there. We'll see how that goes. They also return a starting quarterback, which is key. We're not really talking about that. I know he's more of a runner. It's not Destin Wade, but the leadership qualities are what they're going to need. That 3-4 spot's just real. It's hard to pick between those couple teams who gets it. I would say if it were me, I would say Summit Franklin. I think Indy's lost a little too much. They're going to be in more of a rebuild year this year. It's a good opportunity for Franklin to really sneak in there, I think.
Yeah, I think Overton, like, they're outmatched. Yeah. Like, you're outmatched when another team's putting their long snapper in at receiver, getting his first non-long snapper varsity reps of his career. Which great experience. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for it, but like they should not be in this region. And if they shock the world, then more power to them. But I doubt them a lot.
Football's football.
Indy, like they lost a lot. I feel like right now it's just they need to find their identity because like I feel like they've just gone like different schemes. Like 2 years ago, they were running like RPOs, and I remember I was a safety then as well as a snapper, and we were working on like reading the mesh and like breaking down on the slants. And then last year they were running triple option. It's like just trying to find what works for them going forward and trying to stick with it.
That's what they're going to run going forward. Mm-hmm. That's what Stidham runs.
Yeah.
And he really needs to find the players to run it.
Yeah.
He had that last year, I think.
Franklin, as much as I hate Franklin, I feel like they are on such an upward trajectory. Like they've been the best 0-10 team like the last 2 years, they find like in the nation, the last 2 years, they finally get their win, and so now they have a taste for it. And like as much as I love the kid going up against him in football and lacrosse, Sean Gaka is going to be electric in the backfield. He was, especially with us, like he was really all they had on offense. And so there's that. And then Summit with Kerry Collins is going to be like very interesting because Summit's always been like a power run team. And then they had Destin Wade, who really, let's face it, he was just a glorified running quarterback. He could throw the ball a little bit. But really, he was just a running back that could throw the ball, and I stand by that. Sure, he absolutely cooked everyone in that region and in the state, aside from Oakland, but, just calling it like I see it.
And Franklin got him.
Yeah. And then I just feel like Ravenwood and Brentwood are just switching places. I feel like Ravenwood's going to be like, it's their region to lose, and Brentwood's going to be like, oh, they're a bunch of question marks. They're like, not really young, but I guess like on paper, inexperienced team. But I think they're like going to put it together because they have two quarterbacks that I think are both starting caliber. Like they both have their upsides. I think it's a very like Femi Maverick situation. Especially with the defense. Like, yeah, they like barely any returning starters, but those guys were probably some of the best backups in the state. They like have that experience because of how the coaches run practice, and like guys are getting reps on JV as much as possible. Like unless you're like a number 2 guy, like you're in on JV, you're getting those live reps, you're like seeing everything. You're going up against the number 1s on varsity. And I just feel like, and then obviously like you have Clayton Merrill, you have a 2-headed monster at tight end, and like keeping that expanded playbook that we added with Baylor transferring in and like being able to use that another year with the talent we have, I feel like Brentwood can make some waves. Like I think, as much as it hurts to say, I think we are the number 2 in the region, but I definitely could see us pulling off a Battle of the Woods win. Unfortunately, it's not on Halloween, which would be amazing, but hopefully I'll be there for that game. I'll be there for the game on Friday. I'm excited to see like these guys. They just need that fire. They need that hunger to go out there and like play like their backs against the wall every single snap. But I think they can definitely make some waves, and I think really they can go as far as they really put their minds to. Obviously, like Oakland that's a David and Goliath moment, and like Ravenwood, obviously the favorite, but I do think Brentwood has a chance to win this region as well.
Well, we got to keep going with 6A and over to Region 7 with the Clarksville region. Clarksville, Dixon County, Kenwood, Kirkwood, Northeast, Northwest, Rossview, West Creek. Clarksville ran the table last year, went 10-0, and then had the unlikeliest of flameouts.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, Clarksville, I think, kind of suffers a little bit from the competition level that they sometimes have to play during their year, and so when they come up against a tougher team, then it's they tend not to play their best, or they haven't sharpened their skills against some of the others. I know that the competition is improving in Clarksville. They're starting to play. For a long time they didn't have youth programs and things of that nature that was feeding into the high school. But Clarksville, did only allowed 51 points in the region last year. They're going to be faced with a little bit of a changeover at offensive line. They lost all their starters on the offensive line, but they did add Rayshawn Boyce from East Nashville, who had 83 pancakes last year. Also added a 6'4", 307 sophomore, Trevon Bledsoe from Callaway County in Kentucky, to that line. And Boyce has also been making some plays on the defensive side of the ball. But Dalrymple, Amori Galbraith, Jack Stein as a fullback. Those guys are still there carrying the rock. Stein is a tremendous middle linebacker. They also have a junior running back, Jamarcus Watkins, who's holding a Vandy offer. He's had 3 kickoff returns last year. And the biggest question is going to be Caden Pledger. They're trying to add a pass dynamic to the team. That's going to be the question mark. Aside from that, the biggest threat to them is going to be same one it was last year. It's going to be Ross View. You know, they just need their offense to help the defense out this year. You know, they have some talent there. Senior quarterback coming back. Cole Phillips is coming back at the linebacker slot. He's also got Johnny Caballero at linebacker and Philip Swipestead at Shipstead. I'm sorry, also there. Lots of talent on the Ross View team. Will they be able to pull off pull off that region? Yet to be seen. But if there's a team in that region can do it, it's them. If not, you're looking at Kirkwood. It's a youth and inexperience. They're still growing. They have a tremendous amount of talent. Had a transfer, Moses Bird, that came in with 62 sacks as defensive end. A Todd County quarterback, Miles Redding, threw for 1,800 yards last year. Gavin Hunter, a wide receiver. Lee Buggs is going from quarterback to wide receiver, which is his position, and then you have linebacker Perry Cross-Sneed. Lots and lots of talent on this Cobra team. They very well could make a run at that second spot, but for right now, it's still the Wildcats region to win or lose.
Yeah, guys, anything else to add there?
No, simple. Simple. It's those 3 and then everybody else.
Yeah, Dixon probably finishes 4th.
Yeah.
But yeah. Kirkwood, I think, could wind up being 2nd. Rossview, getting to see Rossview this past week, they looked a lot like last year. They're really good on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, they got to find something to help them out.
I'm interested to see how West Creek improves this year. It's going to be interesting with Michael Booker there as a head coach.
All right. Well, let's take one more quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about Division II AAA and then wrap this thing up. So we'll be back in a minute. To AAA. Mid-state teams shut out of the Blue Cross Bowl last year. It was the All-Chattanooga Championship with Baylor and McCauley, and could be again this year if things keep going the way they're looking. But let's talk about which of these mid-state teams do you think could maybe fare the best out of the ones we have in the biggest class?
Ainsworth, 100%.
Yeah, you got to look at Ainsworth.
Yeah.
Their front 7, led by Ethan Utley. They have Sam Haley at linebacker and Watts at linebacker. Offensively, we'll see what they are, but defensively, they're probably going to have one of the best defenses around. If you don't go with them, Lipscomb Academy would be the other option. However, they're not eligible for the playoffs. And then you look at BA and NBA, I would lean towards NBA just off of what happened last year. They got the more sound run game. Defensively, they're always stout, but it's Ainsworth and then everybody else.
Okay, so let's talk Lipscomb Academy for a second because, they're ineligible again this season, still on probation. What kind of a spoiler role can the Mustangs play?
Big one. They can mess.
Everybody gets in. I mean, I don't see how.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, you can mess up teams.
They're pretty much playing to say we beat Baylor and Baylor won the state championship. Yeah.
I think they're just in a straight up villain role this year. Like if we can't be happy, we don't want y'all to be happy. And I feel like it's at this point that they should have stuck with the all black uniforms because those were great villain uniforms, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
Can you
But
imagine?
I can talk about my thoughts on the new uniforms later.
yeah.
I don't know if you're kind of thinking of a villain like a White Goodman and dodgeball type scene. I mean, you're going back to the purple and
I'm like dark
black.
side. Like,
I'm old school. I'm thinking of Snidely Whiplash with the pencil thin mustache.
yeah.
I agree with both of you. I think you're going to see the kind of scoring, if they can do it, Lipscomb Academy, that's going to be as lopsided as it possibly be, because it's going to be all about getting numbers for the kids, since they're not going to be able to be showcased at the next level. So it's all going to be about getting touches, getting numbers, and things like that for their kids.
And
So
also, yeah, and it's a good point, Scott. And also, too, I mean, you think about this, they can ruin a team's seeding and get them a less favorable matchup in the postseason. I mean, or knock them out of a first round bye, and force them to play an extra game. I mean, there's something for Lipscomb Academy to accomplish every single week against everybody else.
I don't think the talent disparity is as bad as it was when they were in D2-AA though. Innsworth matches up really well with them. So does BA. So does NBA. So we'll see. I think the talent there, especially on the defensive side, is really prevalent. They're all offensively. I don't know what to make of them, but yeah, they could mess up some teams just based on seeding.
Yeah, I would not want to be playing them this year if I was a offensive lineman. Just because of Big Tony Carter, and then on the other side of that, you have a blitzing Chris Thompson. Like, no, I'm out.
right, and then you have offensive linemen like Adair and Chauncey Gooden, right? I mean, but I think if there's a sleeper team, it's NBA in this. I think with Brooklyn Davis, with Hugh Price and the strides he's made at quarterback, just what we've seen in the offseason. This was a team last year that struggled to put points on the board. I think this year that changes. I think this year, they get that offense straightened out. But again, as Joe said, Innsworth, right? It's Innsworth in our coverage area, and then everybody else.
I think the biggest problem in D2-AAA that everybody's chasing with McCallie and Baylor is McCallie and Baylor are so talented and they're just like, they're so fun to watch, right? Just putting up points left and right. And these other teams cannot consistently do that or the other. They're not. They're either really good on the defensive side of the ball and can't score, or they're, in BA's case, extremely talented on offense but can't stop anybody. So, it's. I think that's the clear disadvantage. Everybody's trying to catch, close the gap and trying to be more even on offense and defense. And honestly, I don't know if anybody's made enough strides to be able to make a difference this year.
All right, let's do one more quick thing before we get out of here. I'm going to call this We've Got. And I want you guys to take one team out of the teams we talked about in this episode they don't necessarily have to do the Blue Cross Bowl, but make a big run this year and give me one team, and don't take the same one, and just give me a little quick reason why. And Joe, I'm going to let you go first for this.
Yeah, I'll go with Ravenwood. I mean, I'm the only one here that picked them to win state. So, I mean, it seems like the obvious choice. I think, in my opinion, there are 3 teams in 6A who could win state. I'm sure one of you guys picked the other one, and then the other one's out west, and they just brought home a gold ball last year. So I think Ravenwood has all the pieces. They have the coaching, obviously. I think the Raptors have what it takes to finally bring back some gold this year. Sorry, Tyson.
Tyson, I'll let you respond to that, and you can go next.
I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, I can have a preference, but like, you got to face the facts. Ravenwood is primed for a very good season. And, Brentwood's going to be good too. So I'm happy. As long as my friends are having fun playing football, that's all that matters.
There you go.
There we go. All right. Isaac, you're up.
I mean, it depends on what I mean by a long playoff run or breakout playoff. Like, I think a team in Region 4 6A winning their first round and maybe their second round would be an insane success. I think Mount Juliet, possibly if they win the region, winning a first round playoff game and maybe winning the second, I think that would be considered a great success, even if they don't make it all the way to the semis or something like that. But if you're talking about long playoff run, I gotta agree with Joe. Either Ravenwood or Brentwood, one of those teams. But I'd say if you want a dark horse, maybe someone in Region 4, like Lebanon Gallatin.
All right, Cam.
Yeah, I'll go with the team we were just talking about, NBA. I think they are balanced enough with Hugh Price and Brooklyn Davis to be able to control a lot of football games this fall. And when you can control the game, control the clock, and keep things more at your own pace, I think that they are a team that can push to a semifinal berth.
They did
Scott,
last
you're up.
year.
Me?
Yep.
Yeah, if there's a team that's gonna, you're wanting besides the obvious, but I'm gonna go with Oakland. I think Oakland has, they've added they're not a dark horse by any means. They are the favorite, and rightfully so, and for good reason. One of the best coaches in the mid-state, with one of the best offensive backfields in the mid-state, with a great defense and an attitude this year, because they got whooped in their eyes by Houston last year. I expect this team to be fully on a mission, seek and destroy. I think Kyler Creasy played injured most of the year last year. I think this team is as close to a team of destiny this year as you get.
I'm surprised that none of you took this team to make what I consider to be a big run. I'm taking Antioch because I think they're primed to win their first region title since 2003. And not only that, but I have them winning at least one playoff game, possibly two. I mean, if the cards fall right and their matchups fall right, they could be a quarterfinalist this year in 6A. It could very well happen. And I'm high on this Antioch team to do some big things this year. I mean, they'll have to run into Ravenwood at some point if they want to try to do big things. But
God, that game could be
from where they were to where they are now, it's a long way. They've come a long way so far. So
going off of that for my pick, and like Antioch, I think they can definitely do big things. I just don't see any Metro team making it to the quarterfinals, which is why and there's no bias in this. I've seen them in practice. I've seen them in 2 scrimmages now, against Coffee County. Granted, Coffee County is not a great team, but they were up 21-0 off of 5 offensive plays. But I think Brentwood is a lock to get to the quarterfinals. Whether they get past Ravenwood or whoever they might meet in the quarterfinals and get to the semis, that's a different story. That's something we'll see as we get down the line in the season. But as of right now, I think they're a lock for the quarterfinals.
I see we're going to need 2 homer jars this year.
3. KJ, don't not forget KJ. KJ's big beach homer.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Hey, I might be a homer, but I'm speaking from my brain, not my heart. My heart says Brentwood to state, but my brain is they can make some damage. Raven was able to last year, and I think Brentwood's in the same spot. I think Ravenwood can go deep as long as they don't have a coach dressing up in practice.
My brain says Watertown beat Alcoa 3A state championship, boys.
I like that. I like that confidence, Ivan.
Gotta take the pick.
rest of the
That's
state
a good
would love
pick.
that. The rest of the state would love that.
I'm also just hoping Clarksville region's fun. So if I have a free Friday night before a game,
There you go.
Yeah, that Rossview Clarksville game is going to be a fun one. I think.
Rossview's right off my exit.
I think Kirkwood, Rossview, they're just right across the interstate from each other. That may be a fun game.
Yeah. So if you're up in the Clarksville area, you may see Tyson out of the game or two this season. And
come out to Forterra on Saturdays.
Yeah.
I was going to say, with any luck, you'll see him on Saturdays wearing the red and white.
All right, guys, it's been fun, but now the time for talking is pretty much over, and we got to get this thing going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all
1
counts
week.
starting this week.
1 week.
No,
I mean, the time for talking.
It ain't 1 week. It's
Yeah,
guys,
Thursday.
we're
on
filming
days
on
now.
Sunday night, and we got football on Thursday. We got 4
Right.
days.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby.
All
I'm
right.
gonna-
So,
I'm gonna miss it,
you,
but I'll be
you'll-
here watching.
You get to watch still. You get to watch. You still have a
Oh,
big
trust me, I have 3 screens and 2 eyes. I'll be like this.
All right. So just a reminder, 615 Preps live season premiere of our live shows Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Our scoreboard show will be at 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings, with the exception of the first one, which will be Sunday morning due to week one's blowout extravaganza of Saturday games as well. So just to we'll remind you of when they're going to be
Crazy.
on. Make sure you're watching, and make sure to like and subscribe as well. Helps us out with all that good algorithm stuff, because we want this thing to grow just like y'all do. So thank you so much for joining us for all the preseason previews. Let's kick this thing off, fellas. This ought to be good. 2024 should be a fun one, and we're here to bring it to you. For everybody here at 615 Preps, including KJ, who's not on this show, he'll be back soon as well. Isaac, Cam, Tyson, Joe, and Scott, I'm Chris. We will see you guys down the road. Have a great one, everyone. We'll see you soon.
It's time.